So here it is, the Van Dyck's arrived. We've put it here right in the middle, so he's looking at and inspecting the pictures that we have here at Dulwich. It's very much the gentleman painter, isn't it? Mm. No palette, no sort of instruments of his trade. It's very much the mind, the intellect behind the art.
And it's very economical, isn't it? I mean, I know myself, once you get past a certain stage of working with flesh tones, you lose all life altogether, you know?
You need to know where to start.
Yeah.
But he's been clever. The light on this is very diffuse, very soft. The brushwork is quite united, and then he just lets go completely here. And yet, take that step backward, and it just comes together. And of course, his father was a silk merchant. He grew up with all kinds of cloth that he could feel and touch, and you can really feel that that's something that is important for him.
No, it's extremely tactile in that sense.
We've got Van Dyck here, one of the great portrait painters, set against another great portrait painter, Velázquez, in the form of Innocent X. And of course, this is your piece. I mean, what you've done for me, who knows the picture well, to actually see it rotate like this, you know, the presence of particularly the way he looks at you right in the eye.
Yeah.
And this is Velázquez, you know, it's almost Velázquez is like a mirror to him. There's this extraordinary connection between artists. And
and I think, you know, in the absence of photography, the mirror would be the only faithful representation of one back then. So I think it is that gaze that is so fascinating. And in a sense, I wanted to throw back the mirror on this man in the chair.
And then here you have
self, I guess I was interested in how, in language and our sense of self, we have this one word that represents all of us. And I suppose through 20 odd years or whatever of the PC, I think people are getting more and more adept and acute and attuned to what different fonts say. And this is Times New Roman, so it's a sort of classic default font for much of the last century, and it's made to my height, and it's raised up on a little plinth, so it's a slightly pompous, elevated representation, if you like.
Balances the Pope very well. But it's a wonderful way of rethinking the whole idea of what self-portraiture is or was, particularly with the Van Dyck there, which is a sort of very classic way.
And it's a very solipsistic thing when you start running around language and the ideas of the self, and so it's not just a three-dimensional representation, it's almost like a kind of lathe, or you can imagine something spinning that would kind of suddenly arrested would take up this form.
And if one refers to these two pieces as one, as an entire self-portrait, the I am innocent, is there anything about you within that sense of the innocent?
I think there's something aesthetically uniting between the circularity of that and the spinning Pope, and, you know, I couldn't avoid the pun of calling that piece I am innocent. I guess also I was just interested in what innocent means in English and what it means to be God's emissary on earth, really, But it was great to get the opportunity to show these two works and set up a dialogue. It's about how the self is seen, really, and how, in this case, we are in place of the mirror that Van Dyck's gazing in. In this one, the Pope has almost turned in on himself, and with self, it's a representation of the limits of spoken written language that are available to our self-expression.
To have your work here within this sort of classical hang that Dulwich Picture Gallery represents, and then juxtaposing it with Van Dyck's self-portrait, I think it'll wake people up, essentially. It'll make people realise that Van Dyck's self-portrait shouldn't be just looked at as a beautiful picture and the representation of one of the great sort of painters working in England. But it should, be rethought, and in a way, what you've done is to sort of bring the art of self-portraiture right to the actual moment.